Israel and the Palestinians. History of the conflict explained. A pro-Palestinian woman wearing a headscarf shouts at a pro-Israeli man wearing a blue and white hat bearing the Israeli flag. Image source. Getty Images. 14 May 2019. Updated 20 January 2025. The conflict between Israel and the Palestinian people is one of the longest-running and most violent disputes in the world. Its origins go back more than a century. There have been a series of wars between Israel and Arab nations, uprisings, called intifadas, against Israeli occupation, and reprisals and crackdowns by Israel have also taken place. The consequences of the historic dispute over issues including land, borders, and rights are still being felt, and include the latest war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. What was Israel before 1948 and how was it created? Britain took control of the area known as Palestine in World War I, following the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, which had ruled that part of the Middle East. Advertisement. An Arab majority and a Jewish minority lived there, as well as other ethnic groups. Tensions between the Jewish and Arab populations deepened when the UK agreed in principle to the establishment of a national home in Palestine for Jewish people. Jews had historical links to the land, but Palestinian Arabs also had a claim dating back centuries and opposed the move. The British said the rights of Palestinian Arabs already living there had to be protected. A group of 6 Arab men share a meal in Jericho, Palestine. In about 1925, image source, Getty Images. Between the 1920s and 1940s, the number of Jews arriving grew, with many fleeing persecution in Europe. The murder of 6 million Jews during the Holocaust gave added urgency to demands for a safe haven. The Jewish population reached 630,000, just over 30% of the population, by 1947. In 1947, against a backdrop of growing violence between Jews and Arabs and against British rule, the United Nations, UN, voted for Palestine to be split into separate Jewish and Arab states. Jerusalem would become an international city. No Arab nations supported this. They argued the plan gave the Jews more of the land, even though their population was smaller. Britain abstained. It decided to withdraw and to hand the problem to the UN at the end of 14 May 1948. Jewish leaders in Palestine declared an independent state known as Israel hours before British rule ended. Israel was recognized by the UN the following year. What was the 1948 Arab-Israeli War? The day after Israel declared independence, it was attacked and surrounded by the armies of 5 Arab nations. The conflict came to be known in Israel as its War of Independence. A Haganah, Jewish underground fighter, is pictured just before the start of the Israeli War of Independence in 1948. He is wearing a hat and glasses and is pointing a gun. Image source, Getty Images. Image caption, a Haganah, Jewish underground, fighter just before the start of the Israeli War of Independence in 1948. By the time the fighting ended with an armistice in 1949, Israel controlled most of the territory. Agreements left Egypt occupying the Gaza Strip, Jordan occupying the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and Israel occupying West Jerusalem. About 750,000 Palestinians fled, or were forced from, their homes on land which became Israel and ended up as refugees. The event is known in Arabic as the Nakba, catastrophe. Arab Legion soldiers fire on fighters of the Haganah, the Jewish agency self-defense force, in March 1948. A number of fighters are pointing rifles over a wall. Image source, Getty Images. Image caption, Arab Legion soldiers fire on fighters of the Haganah, the Jewish agency self-defense force, in March 1948. In the years that followed, hundreds of thousands of Jews left or were expelled from Muslim-majority countries across the Middle East and North Africa, with many going to Israel. What was the 1967 Middle East War? What is known as the Six-Day War changed boundaries in the Middle East and had major consequences for Palestinians. The war saw Israel fight Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. It started when Israel, fearing an attack by Egypt and Syria, launched a strike on Egypt's air force. By the time the fighting ended, Israel had captured the Sinai Peninsula and Gaza from Egypt, most of the Golan Heights from Syria, and East Jerusalem and the West Bank from Jordan. About 1 million Palestinians in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem came under Israel's control. A group of armed Israeli military commanders arrive in East Jerusalem after Israeli forces seized East Jerusalem during the Six-Day War in 1967. Image source: Getty Images. Image caption: Israeli military commanders arrive in East Jerusalem during the Six-Day War in 1967. Israel's occupation of these areas has lasted until this day. Israel signed a peace treaty with Egypt in 1979 and returned the Sinai. It annexed East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights, making them part of Israel,